This is 37th Street Radio and TV, and of course, we are out here hooking you up with the best of the best when it comes to interviews. And today we have another special guest. So, guest, please just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Miriam and I'm a journalist.
So, I would really like to just go straight into it. Like, when did your journey in journalism start?
Okay, so I started in journalism when I was really young, actually. I went straight from school through an apprenticeship. So I didn't go to uni, and that's how I started. I started off first writing my own kind of blogs, writing for other people for about a year, and then I got an apprenticeship after school. And so that's how I got into journalism.
So, like, how I'm also interested to just know how you got to BBC.
Yeah, so the apprenticeship was actually a BBC apprenticeship. So they offer like apprenticeships and trainee schemes for people who have just come out of school, or if you have gone through uni and done, you've done a degree and you want to have a job after that. They have a journalism trainee scheme, and that's called the JTS scheme. And then my one was the DJA scheme, so that was the Digital Journalism Apprenticeship. And so that's how I got in. They actually offer it every year, and there's cohorts that come in September, and they train them up for almost 2 years. And then after that, you have the skills and everything that you need to go into different parts. You get to choose your career path from then.
So how is it like working in such a media house that it is very focused on, like, it is a worldwide platform, because very many countries, they get to watch BBC and see what's going on, compared to just a media house that is focused on this nation or a certain demographic? How is it? Can you say that you are very much different in terms of working and operations compared to these other media houses that just focus on maybe one country or one demographic?
Yeah, so when you first go in, it's really daunting because it's so big. There's so many departments and there's so many places that you can go. It's like, where do I want to start my career? But in terms of it being international and things like that, it's actually really good because it gives you an opportunity to know everything about everything. You're not just focusing on one part or one place, even though there are specific teams that do that. If you want to, there's an opportunity for you to work on news that is international, news that is not just on one topic. You can do health, you can do entertainment, you can do stuff that is more feature-based stories, or you could do stuff that is breaking news, any different types. So you need to have knowledge of a lot of stuff, like basic knowledge of a lot of stuff, so that you can move across easily. And it's really good, actually. There are places where you can work for a specific team, and they're more focused as well, and that gives you the opportunity to really hone in on your skill and your area of interest. So.
You've done stories like feature stories, and I just want to understand how you even work. Like, do you find information of maybe something that is happening somewhere? Do you get information about a certain story, then you ask maybe your line manager to get you a crew to go and do the story? Or does these stories come from the line manager and then you are dedicated the duty, go to somewhere, we have this story, go and do it? How does it happen?
So there's like a big thing about, all the stories have to be really accurate. Even if it's a feature story, you have to make sure that whatever you're saying is accurate, because our audiences really rely on us, especially as we're not backed by the government or anything like that. We're not backed by anyone, we're independent. And so we're paid by the license fee, and that means that we need to be accurate. So we spend a lot of time on research. We have researchers that work on stories. So if you wanted to pitch a story about anything, you'd speak to your editor. There'd then be a research stage where you do research along with a researcher, make sure you have all, like, you know, the statistics or the reason that you're doing the story, make sure it's got like a strong kind of news line. And then after that, that's when you go into the writing the story structure and storyboarding, putting together who your contributors, who you're going to interview, and the kind of places that you're going to film, making sure that you've got rights, you know, like copyright and all that kind of stuff. And also making sure that you've got consent from all the people you're going to film. And then that's when you then get into actually doing it, actually filming it, and post that. That's when you get into the editing stuff. And then after the editing, you'll show it to your editor and they will check it for accuracy, for mistakes, for anything, for style. And then when everything's done, you've got your finished package, your finished story. So it's quite a long process actually for features.
We are living in an era where people really thrive on attention. So how do you even know that maybe somebody has just hit you up with certain information? How do you even know that this person is just lying? I do not even need to pay attention to what it's saying. Like, how do you know that this story looks authentic and maybe we are going to do it, or this information is not true, let's not give this information our time?
Yeah, so again, that would be the researchers, and we also have fact-checking teams. We have like whole teams in multiple departments who their job is to check that there's not fake news going around. So like kind of anti-fake news teams. So if you have someone that comes to you and says that, you know, I have this story, you would, you know, take it into consideration, go and speak to your editors. They would speak with the fact-checking teams, the researchers, look for multiple sources and reliable sources as well. So like, you know, government boards that have spoken about it, or like official people who have kind of made reference to it, and see what they're saying as well. So it wouldn't just be like taking the word of one person. There'd have to be a lot of things that you do before then continuing with the story.
Yeah, we are also living in an era whereby people really love, I don't know, but people really love negative news. So as a journalist, how do you deal with that? Because negative stories tend to sell. So as a journalist, how are you able to deal with that? Like when you just have something positive that maybe you want to highlight, this person is doing something good for their community, but you know very well that the audience usually loves very negative stories. So how do you deal with that as a journalist?
Well, I think it's actually a mix. I think audiences do like to see uplifting and happy stories as well, especially when it's something inspiring coming from their local communities. And so I think with negative stories, yeah, they can have a lot of traction, a lot of views, but I don't think that really matters. As a journalist, it's not about, it's not really about doing what sells. It's about making sure that your audience are informed on things they need to know, and also giving a different point of view. So if there's something that hasn't been seen before, there's something new or something positive, like, why wouldn't you want to put positivity into the world? So I'm happy to do those stories, even if they get 10 views. I know that there's 10 people who have maybe learned something new, maybe seen a different point of view and seen something positive. So that's my opinion on that.
In Kenya, there's a very big discussion of the traditional media and the social media, whereby guys are looking at it and saying the traditional media is dead. So I just want you to maybe give your views on that. How do you see it from where you are seated? Do you think that maybe the traditional media is dead and now guys are just following maybe somebody who they trust on Instagram and Twitter to give them information? Where do you sit on that discussion?
Yeah, well, I don't really think I'm equipped to speak on Kenyan media, or because I'm not based in Kenya, so I don't know anything about the Kenyan media or the type of media that people are consuming now. Um, I think media patterns, they change just throughout history and throughout what phases that people are. I think it's really actually hard to track media changes internationally. So even when we look at, okay, people are reading newspapers more, or people are watching more TV, or people are watching more radio, that can change quite quickly. So it's never really a place where, you know, you can 100% say this is the media that people are consuming or not. I think it's a science, and I don't think I I don't think I know enough, frankly, to just to speak on it, just because it's not really my area. But yeah.
What can you say is your most memorable experience on duty? Maybe you met someone, maybe you just experienced something that you've never experienced in your life. What can you say are some of the memorable moments in your career?
That's a tough one, actually. My most memorable moments. I mean, I think it has to be my second day of work, actually, because that's where everything started. On my second day of work, I went to a Rihanna red carpet. And it was so big for me because, you know, I've just come out of school doing this apprenticeship, and I've just started in the office, and it's day two. And, you know, being new anywhere, you just don't even know what you're doing on the second day of work. And it was like, oh, Rihanna's, it was for her Fenty Beauty launch. And so she released loads of makeup for different people of different shades and colors, and they asked me if I wanted to go to this red carpet event. And that was so big for me to be able to just, you know, first week of work, be able to go to something so exclusive, and, you know, see how everything works behind the scenes, and also see Rihanna in person, like up close and personal. It was um, one of the most memorable things, being my first week. Yeah.
Another thing is for journalists like you, I just want you to ask you this, like, so how are you able to retain relevance when everybody is just on their phone screen nowadays? You see how people behave. Everybody is just on their phone screen. They go maybe to a party, everybody is on their phone screen instead of even talking to their friends. So how are you even able to maintain the relevance?
As in stay relevant to people, or you mean, sorry, I don't understand the question.
Yeah, I'm asking, like, you being a journalist, and of course nowadays because of the social media, guys have very diverted attention. So how are you able to remain relevant, and maybe somebody, if they see a feature, a story that you have done, they just want to watch it because maybe they know that maybe you are authentic,
Mm.
instead of maybe just going on TikTok, Instagram, all the social media, but they just want to watch you.
Okay, yeah. So I honestly, I think I put a lot of work into the stories that I do. And so for me, it's not, I think once I've done it, it's out there, and I let the story and the work speak for itself. Um, and usually that works well for me. It's not really, I think there's a lot of battle to create content that everybody wants to see and be the top watched or the top seen, and that's never really been my thing. For me, it's more about making sure that whatever I'm creating is relevant to my audiences, whoever that audience might be, whichever team I'm with. Um, and it's something that they care about, even if it's not number one. I just love to look through the comments and see, you know, positive comments that say, oh, you know, I'm happy that I watched this, or I've read this today. You know, just so I know that whatever I'm doing might not be the most popular or the most relevant, but it's still interesting to the audiences, because those are the people that will share it with more people, and then they will see a different point of view or a different story that they've not seen before. So
have you ever gone to the field and maybe you have planned that this is what we are going to do today, this is how we are going to go around a certain issue, and then things don't go as planned? How do you deal with that?
yeah, so that will often happen. I mean, you have a backup plan for your backup plan for your backup plan. So when you're doing your risk assessments before you go out filming, you know, I was saying like the commissioning process for a story is really long because there's the research that goes into it, and then there's the things that you do in terms of planning, speaking to your contributors beforehand and everything like that. So most of the time, if things don't go right, there's something, the mic isn't working or the light for the camera, or somebody's forgotten your SD card, you'll have a spare battery, a spare SD card. You'll have another way to film your audio. You'll have different questions that you're going to ask. You will have considered everything that could have gone wrong in your risk assessment before going out to film. And so when things do go wrong, there's usually a backup plan or a backup plan for your backup plan. So it's really all about preparing and making sure you're really prepared before you go out.
Now, when you're doing a story and of course you are filming it, and then for whatever reason, maybe the participant doesn't want to give information. So what happens? Does that story, do you just throw that story, or now how will you go about it? Had something like this ever happened to you?
So usually before filming stories, we have full consent from our contributors, and we have consent forms and we speak to them in detail about the information that they're going to give. So you usually know before doing the interview what kind of things they're going to say, and you know, the kind of information that you're going to get before you've even collected it. If after the interview they might decide that actually I don't want that bit in it, or I don't want this bit in it, I think it depends. You can, because they've signed the form, they have actually given that to you, so you can go ahead and use it. But sometimes it may be just worth removing that section or removing the whole interview, depending on what it is. It's quite nuanced, so it really depends. But it's again, it's the preparation. You would have had your consent forms signed, you know, before or after you finish the interview, so that doesn't really happen.
From when you started till date, I just want you to look back and just talk to us about your achievements. What are you so proud of maybe achieving? Where are you, maybe you went somewhere that you had never pictured, you met somebody, you talked about going to the Rihanna event. Do you consider that maybe an achievement for you?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say it was an achievement, because you know, it was my second day. I hadn't really, you know, it was just a big thing for me. But in terms of my achievement, I think I'm proud of the stories that I've made and the variety of stories that I've made. I've done stories that are really hard news stories, you know, things that are to do with you know, things that people didn't know that are happening in countries that are less spoken about widely in the media. Positive stories as well, uplifting stories, feature stories to do with history and culture, are things that I love as well, that I'm proud that I've been able to make or take part in making. And so it's really just the stories that I've made that I'm proud of, and I guess my own personal development during that time. I definitely feel like I've grown in confidence. I'm able to, I used to speak more confidently and gain more knowledge about different parts of the world, and you know, the experiences that people have. I've traveled for work. I've seen things that I wouldn't have seen if I wasn't a journalist, and it really is a great thing. Yes, I'm quite happy so far.
I was just checking your stories and I saw that you interviewed Davido, and I just wanted to know, when interviewing artists, has it ever happened that maybe you are interviewing an artist and he shows you an attitude? How do you deal with that, maybe?
Um, I've not, everybody that I've interviewed has been really nice. I mean, I've interviewed people from musicians to politicians to all sorts, and you speak to them most of the time before you meet them. With Davido, I actually didn't get the chance to speak to him before, but he was just really lovely. There was a lot that was happening that day. It was a very crazy day actually, because there were tube strikes in London, which meant that there was a lot of traffic. So everything was running a little bit behind schedule. And those are one of those things that you just can't really do anything about. But he was still really, upbeat and happy to answer questions, and gave some great answers. So luckily, I've not really had any times where I've been clashing during the interview with the contributor. But I think always just remaining professional, even if that there was a moment where you feel like, oh, okay, this is going wrong, or there's a bit of an attitude coming. You kind of just have to pretend you don't see it, and just go along, get the questions that you've asked, the questions that you plan to ask. And it may be a case of actually asking them how they are during the interview, so that there might be something that they want to speak about, which could actually contribute to your story, and that might be the reason that they're upset. So yeah.
You're also very passionate about swimming, and I just want you to talk about the importance of having a life out of your career, because there are very many people who everything is all about their job. So what can you say is maybe the importance of somebody having a life out of their career?
Yeah, it's so important to have a life outside your career. It's so important to do stuff non-work related that you enjoy, because it's about balance. So I think work is really important. If you love your job, you'll have a good life because it's something that you do most of your life. There's 7 days in a week. You spend 5 of those days working for, let's say, 8 of those hours. So that's a long time to spend in the workplace. So outside of that, to kind of create balance, I think it's so important to find things that get you excited outside of the workplace, something to do and to pursue that isn't based in the place where you spend all your time. So for me, that swimming was that hobby. Swimming was a challenge. I'm still learning to swim because it's such an important skill to have. And it's like, it gets me thinking and it's not work. When I swim, I feel like, okay, my mind is completely empty. I'm just focused on getting the technique right and, exercising and, swimming. And so if you don't have a hobby or you don't know what your hobbies are, you could just try lots and lots of different things, and that kind of becomes a hobby in itself. But it's so important. Yeah, I agree.
As we are finishing up, I want you to talk to guys who they are just starting out. They just want to be a journalist like you in a very accredited media house. Like, how should they go about things? Maybe what have you noted in the industry that maybe they should do, things that they should not do? Like, how should they move?
So when I started through an apprenticeship, and that was my way in. And that was because I was just on the internet, literally searching journalist opportunities, entry-level opportunities. And that was that's how I got in. But before that, I'd already started writing. I'd already started asking for writing opportunities. And that's kind of what gave me a bit of a leg to stand on when it came to the interviews and they asked, what experience do you have? So I'd say, make sure you're being proactive, always looking for opportunities. The internet is a wonderful resource. Use it. And also make sure that you have your things. Don't wait for somebody to give you the opportunity. Whilst you're searching, make sure that you have something that you're doing of your own, something to show for yourself. If you love writing, start a blog, start a website, and start writing about the things that you're passionate about. If you love making films, you know, get a camera, start filming, start practicing, so that when you find that opportunity that you've been searching for, you already have experience and you already have something to show for yourself. And finally, I'd say it's not about networks. I know people make a big thing about networking and making sure you know all the right people, you can grease the right palms and shake the right hands to get through those doors. But actually, it's about your attitude. If you have a bad attitude, it doesn't matter how many people you know, you're not going to progress. Be positive, be polite, be kind, and be a hard worker. You know, and those are the things that even if you don't know that many people, the people that know you will remember you, and those will make the opportunities.
One thing I need to ask you before we even finish, like I've been checking out your Instagram and you don't overpost. So is this a strategy or what's up with that?
I just don't post that much. I feel like I like to post some of my highlights, but I'm so behind on Instagram right now. I think it's just because I do like to take some space from social media and everything for a bit, because I think it can be a bit of overconsumption sometimes. But I am hoping to catch up and post more on Instagram, but it's not a strategy, it's just by accident.
Okay, thank you so much for giving me your time. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.